right, so let's get started with episode 2. We're hoping that episode 1 worked out. So once this episode comes out, if this is out before episode 1, then the first one didn't work out so well. But
the
today,
prequel?
Yeah, yeah, the prequel too. So I have Mr. Talbot Reiber of Talbot's Taproom and Terrace to grace us with your presence today.
What is up?
Well, not much. Sunday fun day, I guess, right?
Represent.
So, yeah.
Right.
Wine and empanadas to start the day.
Man, empanadas, thank you very much.
You got
I
it.
killed about 6. Yeah.
So what we've been trying to do on this, and my goal with this podcast basically is to bring some people in. I'm calling it Uncorked because I want to kind of get behind the scenes a little bit of what makes people tick in their business. Like the thought process of where you came from, how you run your business, just the who you are behind the scenes, rather, a little bit, and kind of unpeel those layers a little bit. So let's see what we can do with it. And the one thing that interests me about you, among many, but is how you stay so positive all the time with everything going on. Because in this business that we're in, and you even more than me, it's a constant struggle every day of pitfalls and peaks and valleys, and I know you as to be someone that's always up and always energized, and it's always interested me, and I look at that and envy that of how do you just stay up all the time.
Yeah. So, I mean, I got it through, I've learned the most about it through this latest venture. So I've been in this business forever, right? My dad's had them, and I've ran them for my father, and I got into doing Talbots, and after probably 6 months, 7 months, I became very cognizant of the fact that everybody feeds so much off of my energy and how I come in for the day. So if I do have a bad day per se, then it's just reflected, And I mean, I know it's crazy that it took me that long in life to, kind of figure it out, but it was from doing it and then watching the energy build every day of the restaurant, and from its inception, it's continued to kind of roll that way. So I've, tried to catch myself in the midst of it and realize that,
Right.
And try to remember that on each day. And, I got in an awful accident a long time ago, right? So from coming out of it on the correct side of things, and that just totally switched my thinking. It's just like, wow, I mean, if a guy hadn't been driving by at that time, not to get deep too quickly,
get into
but
it,
you know what I'm
that's
saying?
a big part of your life.
Yeah.
And it was something I wanted to ask you about, but I wasn't sure how much you wanted to go into it. But I mean, it does change you and shape you. So,
If the guy hadn't been coming by at that time and seen the car burning and stopped and pulled me out, I would have burned.
Oh, so I knew that you were in a bad accident, but I didn't know that end of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was drinking, driving home, fell asleep, I assume, crossed the road, hit a culvert. My car exploded, and it caught on fire. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning, Route 19 coming north towards Mercer. I lived in New Wilmington at the time. And a gentleman coming by on a motorcycle, stopped and pulled me out, and then got, I had still had some burns and whatnot, and then, traumatic, and spent some time in the ICU. And I mean, I was positive before that as well, but coming out through that, and, the doctor saying, you may not walk again, and all this. And then I came back, and after a few months, and then you get up and then you smile and realize, wow, I'm gonna be pretty close to what I was before. When I woke up in the hospital and I realized that my wits about me and I heard my family, the first thing I did was raise my finger and flick my whole family out. And they were like, "Oh, he's still good,
still here, yeah.
right?"
Still Talbot,
yes.
yeah. Oh, that's crazy. So when was the accident?
June 25th, 2009.
Okay.
Yes.
When did you open Talbot?
May 1st, 2017.
Okay, so it was a little ways. Well, you were still working with your dad at the time?
Still, I worked with my dad all the way up until New Year's Eve of 2016. And then I kind of bowed out and then set all this stuff up in Mercer while I was in an empty building. You know very well of this process. You're sitting in there and you're figuring out some of the concepts, but, by yourself. And it's a crazy time where you're able to put so much together, and you need to be by yourself. Yeah. But I think it's still.
I always look at it kind of like it's like a Rubik's Cube or Tetris or something, where you're just trying to move those pieces in your mind of sitting in trying to put the people in the area, like what can they do here? How are they going to talk? Or when they turn and walk through this place, or what are they going to look at? And I know you think about those things too, but yeah, you have to have that vision to put that place together. Yeah, for sure.
You always want, I always want people to see a different thing that they've seen in the last experience I had, like there's no way that I've been here 22 times and I haven't noticed all this.
Right. Yeah, there's always something to peek out.
Yeah. And kids dig it at such a high level, and that makes everybody's experience great.
Right.
Yeah.
So before you get into that, talk a little bit about, and I wanted that because I know a little bit of the story, but wanted to get a little bit more into it about, like, you basically grew up in the restaurant industry.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, your dad has done it for years.
Since I was born.
Right. So talk a little bit about, kind of, I guess, your journey, but your journey was through your dad pretty much, right? Yeah.
I learned a ton through, so my father was partners with John McKinley at the Iron Bridge. So my dad got the portion of the business that Bill Kingery left when he went south in 1980, I think. So my dad and John were partners throughout the 80s. In the mid-90s, my dad kind of sold out of that Springfield group, and then he got his own place in Butler in 1998. And
that's where he's at now? Same place?
Yep. Yeah, 1998 till now, so it'll be 23 years next March, I believe. And I ran that for him. Went to college, went to North Carolina State, spent some time in Atlanta learning about the business, ran his place from when I was 18 till about 36.
Now, when you were in Atlanta, you worked in the industry too?
Yeah, I worked at a place called Houston's in Buckhead.
Cooking, bartending, serving?
Serving, being out front. There were 125 people interviewed for 3 serving spots. And I ended up getting it because the GM was from North Allegheny.
There you go.
Yeah, right?
You always got to have a connection.
How about that? Yeah. But it was cool. I learned a lot about the business. Like Puff Daddy would come in and get stuff. So it was cool. I love that, the culture, the portion of that. I learned a lot in Atlanta about culture. Tried to bring some of that back to Mercer.
Right. So, like, how much of what your dad, the way he ran his businesses, the way he ran his restaurants, when you ran his restaurant, do you think that's what propelled you of all that knowledge, where it was able to catapult you like so much through that learning curve, or did you then take what you knew from him and then you had to still go through your own learning curve and your own ups and downs to figure out how you wanted to do it your way?
Well, so when I started, when I started to get into being a restaurant manager and doing the books and whatnot, it was for my mother, my father, my sister, and myself. We ran the business together. So it was kind of like, hey, you learn how to do these books, but you don't really know why you're doing them. You're doing them because, that's your job, and your dad's telling you to do it, But then, through all that, but the best part of it is how my father treats people. You go out in town, you say Rick Reiber, there's not going to be very many people that don't get a smile on their face, right? So, and then that's what I take big time from him too. Maybe not the whole positive manner, but the instilled values of how you truly treat people, and why do you care about people to the level that everyone is an individual, right? Mm-hmm. So you have 1,000 employees. Well, be good enough to get to know every one of those 1,000 employees like an individual, and then it makes all the difference.
Yeah, because if people have never been in this side of whether working in it or in this industry, is you immediately become family with people. You have to, because it's not easy, and you're with people day to day, and you're asking people to do a lot because of like you said, you have to be able to trust people enough to make people that come to your place so comfortable that they enjoy that experience and they're going to come back, and the level of stress that happens instantaneously to an entire group of people for an extended period of time, right? So when you're under like direct stress for 4 hours, and then when everybody comes out of it, you have to you have to be able to. It feels so. There's nothing like it though, and I know from all the years I did it, and then being away from it and starting this over again, I didn't realize how much I missed it. A point of it is that stress, because at the end of the night, you do feel so accomplished, where it's like it's a monumental task to be able to get it to orchestrate that all and let it roll.
And then when it is that smooth, it's just like, and I remind myself, my staff all the time now, guys, like, we're getting good at this. You have to be in that moment. You have to, and it's not arrogance. But
do you ever, sometimes, do you ever get I don't know about scared or nervous, but sometimes when it runs so smooth, like you fuck something up, like could it be that good? You know what I mean? Should it be that easy?
Have happen.
Yeah.
I talk about it being electric in my place big time. So at the bottom of the menu where it says buy around for the kitchen, right? So it's as simple as it sounds, buy around for the kitchen. So I get tons of questions about, what is it? What does it do? When are they allowed to have them? Explain it. Like, no problem. They can have it whenever. Yeah. And if it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon and one of my employees wants a shot of Jameson, yeah, absolutely, go ahead. But just, you have to do your job the rest of the day. But the idea is that, like, that puts so much energy back into so when somebody buys it and then it's ran through the computer system, right? And then my cooks read it, and one cook goes, woo, and then the whole everybody woos.
And you can hear it out in the dining room, yeah.
And then the energy transfers right back out to, and it's crazy to watch one simple act, but and they appreciate being able to get them, and everybody, and now they already know that they said thank you.
Yeah.
It's instantaneous.
Oh, it's terrific. Yeah, it's a good thing up there. Yeah, when it happens.
Yeah, and it all happened for the right reason. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is good.
So you have on your menu, and I've always loved this, but when you have this when you first walk in, I think in your entrance, don't you?
Yeah,
like in your foyer.
I wrote it on a billboard right over there.
But it says, "The meal I promise and serve is my reputation. If you enjoy, tell others. If not, tell me." Yeah. And I love that because, not verbatim in those words, but I think customers sometimes don't understand the power of being honest about something and how word spreads, and it can build a business up or it can tear something down too. Of if you're talking negative about a business in a way, but you can't fix it if you don't know.
Right.
If somebody has a bad time at your place, there is no way to fix it. But when you go start telling everybody, oh, this was horrible, this was it, this was that, it can hurt a business,
right?
Instead of coming straight to you.
So you put it right on the front of your menu.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then give people to say, hey, look, if you see that bald guy walking around, which I try to be as present as possible, right. Hey, tell him, and he'll. I'm not saying you're gonna get the answer that maybe you always want.
Right. Oh, everybody has their own opinions. Yeah. We've talked about this off. We won't bring it up here, but we've talked about this a few times. But
but there's nothing that's ever gonna happen that was intentional. And you never want somebody to have a bad time. So whatever the problem was, I can fix right now, and it can be fixed in a way that you leave with a smile. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole idea behind it for me. Like, there's never a problem that can't be solved. And if people do get upset or in arms, I just am able to chill them out real quick.
Yeah, and you can't make everybody happy, but I think it's your goal and it's mine. I think it's a lot of people's goal is you're trying to. But everybody's not going to be pleased with everything. It's just
it's human nature.
Some things aren't for everybody, but I think people don't understand is we do our best, to try to make it as comfortable and as inviting as can be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I've got to the point where I've seen that the food that we're producing is so good and we're on such a roll. They're like, you see them move people, like legitimately move people, and that's what I get it. That's what fuels me.
Right.
I'd say too.
Right. So two things with that I wanted to get into a little bit was the food, but also while we're talking about family and stuff a little bit, you're married, you have 2 kids, mm-hmm. and you grew up in this business, right? And it takes a ton of your time, a ton. And people don't understand, I think. Any business, but the restaurant business, you're married to it, you know what I mean? And you're in it. Yep. What's your thought process and it's something I want to get in with this, talking to people is once I had kids, it completely changed my outlook on everything. Yeah. I think most people
on
do.
Time.
Oh,
right?
yeah, on everything. Time. So how do you manage, what's your thought process, how is that balance of success, of growth in business, but also as a dad and a husband as well?
Well, so I sat down with my wife and one daughter at the time before I did this, and we kind of talked about, hey, you're going to have to give me away for like 5 to 7 years for me to be able to build this for our lives. All right. And that's my goal. That's my vision. I'm not saying that's the reality of the matter. And but I knew that because of how I grew up, right? So at one point, my father had 12 places that he was the GM of for John McKinley, you know? So I didn't see my dad at all, you know what I mean? At all. And that's something that helps me with the balance of my life, you know, like and my dad provided at such a great level, you know, but for me to move forward, I realized that it can't be the same, you know, and a sideline to this, not to get off, but you know, what has happened in the last 20 months, you know, so that's changed the entire structure of the business that I've grown up in. Okay, so this business was always based on 365 days of revenue because that's how you had to put it in.
And we talked about, like, one of
Yeah.
your things before was always, you basically never close, like you're open.
Right, and you have to do that, right? But that's a product of the way that I was raised and how I was, you know. And then now that when I came back from closing for 50 days because of this at the beginning, I wasn't able to staff for those full 7 days. And then so we started running the business however we were figuring out. And then after doing all these cycles, I realized this is just a much more effective way. So we can only do this for 5 days, and because our product is good enough, we can tell people when to come and get it, right? And that was never the thought before. So that's helped me with more family time, you know, these 2 days. But now I feel guilty on Mondays and Tuesdays. I feel like I should be doing something.
You should be working.
I should, like that should be the goal. That's how I've always been driven. But, you know.
And I struggle with that too. Like it's weird because in COVID, for as many negatives that there were, it was great to just stop and be home.
Yeah.
Because it was years, you know, between running the bar, teaching, coaching, doing whatever else. And it was just like, there's nothing else to do other than just enjoy and be home.
Right.
And it was a good thing. But then it's like once the gears start rolling again, and it's like, okay, it's time to start business again. It's time to get going again, and life starts happening. When you have those days off, you immediately go back into your grind mode of, okay, it's time to work.
Yep.
Right. And,
Yeah.
and you grew up like that, and that's all I know too. You know, is grind it out and work, and if you can't get it done, then figure out how to do it and keep going and going and going until you do. Right. There's no other way to do it. But when you have those down days, I struggle sometimes with like feeling guilty taking a day off. Like when you should be enjoying that time with your family and enjoying and doing those other things, it's like, oh, well, the business needs me or this needs me. But when you get it running smoothly and you get it to where it's happening, I still feel guilty sometimes, like you should be doing more though.
Yeah,
you know?
but because it's such a part of who you are as a person. Yeah.
It's I struggle. That's why I like that. That's something I want to talk with people about on this, because I feel like that people that have family and have kids that grew up in a family like that, you know, that those are difficult days, and I think there's people that can relate and learn from it.
Yeah,
as well.
And what is the best way to find that balance? You know, I mean, the balance is, you know, if I'm able to, for my wife, who, you know, is the disciplinarian and she raises the kids most of the time, to be able, whenever I see it, be like, hey, go do whatever you need to do to make you happy, because that makes us happy in turn. And I mean, that's.
Now, do you think that's what you're doing now, that you've found a model that's it? You're going to stick with it and go?
I will never open on no, I shouldn't say never. It is my hopes that I don't have to open on a Monday or Tuesday again, because it's great for my staff. Man, they get a couple of days, and then the 2 days that we're closed, you know what I mean, because of that family nature of things, we like each other, that we hang out, and we're able to actually do something outside of that. And, you know, from a business standpoint, with the thought of, you know, if your product is good enough, you get to tell people when to get it idea. You know, my revenues went way up with closing it down, you know what I mean, with shrinking the amount of time, which is great. So, I mean, it's all the positive things that you want to come out of it are coming out of it. I could tell you one of my biggest fears, if we're talking about that what I'm doing today, like specifically today, right now, it won't be as good tomorrow. And that drives me. Yeah. You know, and it took me a long time to figure that out too. Like, but why is it so important to pay attention to all these details and these fine-tooth comb things that you do? And I think that's why, because tomorrow it might not be as good. and you want it to be, you know, I mean,
Right.
I want the lobster roll to be as good tomorrow
Yeah.
or
Every
better.
time it's on special to be better than
Yeah.
the time before. Yeah.
So I don't get called out by my boys.
Right.
Like, what is this?
Yeah.
What is
Yeah,
this?
you hyped this shit up for
Yeah.
so long, and
Well,
I'm
it's
getting
whack.
this. Yeah. Right. So you mentioned about like the workers, and working in the kitchen. I mean, serving's one thing, but working in the kitchen, I mean, that's a grind.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's a grind, and it's a camaraderie. It's a grind, and you don't get a lot of praise. You know, I know everybody's buying
Yeah.
around for the kitchen, but
Yeah, it's
and
true.
it goes
Yeah,
a long
'cause
way.
you-
But
'cause
you
you're
don't
not out
get the
in the-
praise. You know what I mean? Because usually the restaurant gets the praise or the owner gets the praise. You know what I mean? And sometimes that chef does, but it's all the people in there that make that thing run.
Yeah.
Right. And so with what you're saying is by cutting those hours down, it a lot, because you never get time off back there.
No.
Ever.
Yeah.
And it's you feel like that energy level has just gone up where they can just do their job better too.
Yeah,
You know?
and if you get enough people in there that are good, and now I'm able to, you know, and with that structure I've changed it as well. I'm trying to pay people more money than what the industry, whatever it may be, where I feel that it helps them provide for whatever they need to provide at the highest level, you know, and it works that way. You know, and I think it's one of my goals to continue to go through this, that if we can build something there in Mercer that we're in line to do right now, it can make a good career for quite a few people.
Right.
You know
right.
what I mean? And,
Yeah.
and a good one.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And there's a loyalty in this industry. There's a loyalty to, you know, having a good staff and treating people well, to where people fall in love with those places, and they don't, you know, once you feel like you're part of that and your family, and that you had a hand in building what that is and what that aura is around that place, and they feel like it's their own. You
Yeah,
know? And when you're
absolutely.
taking care of them, they're taking care of you, which it keeps that cycle going. I mean, it's what you need.
that's why I try to serve the best food in the world at prices that are lower than what people would think, you know, because that makes you feel like you're a part. You're always going to be able to come back. You're like, the instilled trust. I mean, trust, right? Yeah. That's why, hey, if you don't think you like duck, like, come eat it at my place.
Right.
You know?
Right. And you will.
And that's the idea,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So dishes, right? So you're I think for people that don't know, your place, Talbot's place, is you have some unique things on the menu. I think some things that items on dishes that aren't unique, but the way you put them together, the way you name them, everything, I think is unique to your place. Would you
I would
agree
agree.
with that?
Yeah. With the naming and the.
Yeah. So, you know, and I know you do a lot of research and development. I know you're into culture, you're into, you know, art and all that, and I want to get into that too. But what's from where you went with your dad, growing up with your dad, you know, because that Rachel Springfield, that's kind of
That's been a staple of the area
and
forever.
they're not really pushing boundaries so much, I think, with their thing. It's more traditional, I would call it, right?
I would say. I mean, you know, corporate now.
Yeah.
You know.
Mhm. So from going from there to your dad's place at W. Rick's, you know, to where you are, what made you, your comfort level or your thought of where you decided to go with how you put your dishes out, how you wanted to plate them, the presentation of it, how putting you know, items together on a dish, naming all that. Where did that all come from?
I say that from the knowledge, all of the knowledge that I continually gained from 18 until, you know, this point, and then finally able to get the right people in place to be able to put it out in a manner of, you know, I mean, the whole culture of the restaurant industry has changed so much in the last, like 15 years, as far as now, right, where everybody can be a foodie, right, go take pictures and whatnot. So if you know that perception of food is what's gonna get it, you know what I mean? So I'm stimulated by, you know, art, bright colors, whatnot, things, anything with height. I used to always talk about, you know, it's all about the verticality, you know, and then that's how you started with that. But I mean, in the end, when you can finally get people together that see the same thing and that you're able to do it and produce it on a level to be able to feed, you know, 400 people sometimes in a day on a Friday or a Saturday. So all of that has to go into it,
Right,
you
right.
know, and so, you know, pieces of that puzzle is my entire kitchen. Allison McCandless has been there since we started. She's kind of like the girl that calls all the tickets. She's the boss. She's the glue, but she's not.
Maestro.
She's not this.
Yeah.
She's not the chef, but she's she's the center of that heartbeat of the kitchen. And then Chef Amy, chef has been with me for almost a couple years now. Amy Adams, I think she's 31, dietitian. That's how she got into the business. Has been at a few different places. Affectionately named Hippie Amy. She digs vegetables. She digs things that I never had necessarily got that far into. Tons of things about microgreens that that wasn't my bag, but certainly open-minded about it. Right. And then the last piece, it was Bryce Stanford. So he's been a buddy of mine for 20 years. It was actually in my wedding. And then he had worked for Emeril Lagasse in New Orleans from 99 to 2005, and then bounced around executive chef at a bunch of different places. And life brought him back this way. And so I asked him if he would help me with some structure for a while. And he said, yeah. And then it just kept rolling along. And I realized what the depth of flavor, that their ability to get into sauces and to any different thing is great. And then the three of us together. So it's the idea that the three of us sit down, wherever it may be around the restaurant area, and just rap about food, right? And that's how we come up with all of our specials. Nobody has an ego that it doesn't have to be somebody's dish, and nobody cares about the name, who gets the credit for anything. Right. And it's just whatever idea,
just happens, yeah.
So last week at the end of an ahi dish, Amy was like, and tempura battered asparagus. And those are the ingredients that you're talking about, that you had mentioned, that one thing that sets it away. That why would you have thought of that? And that's like deep fried balls of goat cheese on ahi, or sauces that complement, with super vibrant over here, and
But that's where that creative side of, you're into art and you're into music, and I feel like that vision of it all, it's the creativeness that comes out, to where it could be that's one thing that you read or you see, or you're listening to music you hear, and you never know where the inspiration is going to come from, or where that thought, or where your mind ends up going. Like you're saying, sitting in that blank room, I still do it here. You know what I mean? And I wish sometimes I had just a checkbook that I can just keep writing to keep building what I want to build, like what's in my head that you want to do. And I know you're the same way, but you never know where it's coming from, or the conversation you have, or what you see on TV, or eat, or taste, or cook, and then
Liberty Mutual commercials.
Yeah, it just goes. You know what I mean? If Aaron Elliott's listening to this, he'll like that. But you never know where it's going to come from or where it's going to go. Yeah, and that's the thing, is when you have the team that you can trust. You just said about trust. If you have that team you can trust, and you're not afraid to take chance. Yeah, go. And you're not afraid to take chances. Yeah. With, hey, let's see if this works out.
Yeah, because what's the worst thing that's going to happen?
Yeah, it doesn't.
You're only going to sell X amount of them, because you're going to sell, for whatever special that you put on. Yeah. And to be able to coherently know that every person does have the good ideas, and you give people I don't care if it's a 17-year-old hostess that says, hey, one of my favorite things that a lot of people know is, hey, Talbot, you know what you should do. So I really like when people say that to me. So, but even if it does come from a 17-year-old hostess and she has a good idea, that's great. Tell me about it. Let's do, what is it?
Yeah, let's see if it works.
You want a pink and yellow sauce for that? Well, yeah, let's see how we get to that point.
So when I think I would say, from my perspective, that Talbot's is known for, basically, menu-wise, it's known for a few things, but menu-wise, it's known for specials. I would say that's what, when I think of Talbot's, I think of that neon colored, or that colored paper that comes out on Mondays or Tuesdays when you put it out, and it's, what are the specials this week, right? I'm always looking for the names that are out, and I'm looking for, okay, what are the ingredients in this, and seeing where it's coming from, right? But when you have because your pepperoni puffs, that's been a staple of yours since day one, right?
Yep, pretty close.
But when you have your menu, what do you think about, like, when you are building that? Are you trying to build that for the people that maybe that's a little bit more conservative, that's your everyday staples, or are you still trying to push yourself that hard on that as well?
So,
and are you changing that to keep up with where those specials are? You know what I mean?
I mean the specials as a whole? You mean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't obviously off by heart I don't know your whole menu, but
Yeah.
I mean I know you just have an everyday menu that's there, right? So you have to know
those are the staples.
what works every day.
Yes,
For
absolutely.
those regulars that are coming back. But I feel like that I think sometimes like when regulars are coming to your place, they're coming because they want to try. They're coming every week because I want to try what's out this week. I want to try what's out this week. You know what I mean?
Right.
So with that,
you can get a crab cake, a prime sirloin, cream corn, and a lobster tail this week, right? Yeah, but that is that you have to have something here as like a template of what the quote unquote the majority
or the masses need, or want. Yeah.
But my goal is to take this special sheet and to what I mean. How much better would it be? So I just went to a restaurant in Sarasota, Florida, Sage. They had 20 total items. I mean, 8 appetizers, 8 entrees, and then like 5 desserts. Think about that. So if you only have to produce these 20 things at all.
Do you ever think about going to that?
Well, I mean, compared to what I had when it started in March of 2020, I bet I had a 8 to 10 page. Now I have a front and back and 7 items. So what we order is, but that's why the quality of this does have to be pushed at such a high level, right? And but the best part of it is that's not the thought behind it to me when we're writing them. It's just 3 people that really like food, and then you're like, well, I mean, what did you read about, or where have you been lately, or what did you see that we can do, like the pastrami crusted ribeye. I saw it at a restaurant, Weston, Maine, in Warren, Ohio, like a month ago, and I said to my chef, "What is this?" Right? I mean, well, but how do you pastrami crusted? Because you have to think the same thing.
Right. Yeah.
You like food, the same. They're like, what, huh? So we drove to Weston, Maine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We
research and development.
Research and development.
I love it.
What a great way to
Tuesdays. I love always waiting to see your posts that come out where you are and what it is, because it is. You have to, and I think too that people get mad when you steal other people's ideas, right?
Yep.
But we're in an industry where there's nothing that you can't.
It's not original.
No.
At this point, it's not original.
And I think it's flattering when you do take someone else's and think that, wow, that was that fucking good.
Yeah.
Like,
and give them a shout out about it, right?
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah,
because,
tell people.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing original about anything that we do. I talk about that about wine. I'm like, it's fucking wine. They've been making it for
long,
thousands and thousands and thousands
time.
of years. Yeah, it's wine. But it's everything that goes with it, right? It's all that goes with it. It's your personality. It's your experience. It's how you treat people. It's the meetings you have with your chefs, and it's all that goes with it. And,
yeah. How many times have I told you? Like, I mean, we know that you're selling wine, but we know what you're selling.
Yeah.
You're selling you. I mean, and it's the truth, and that's what people. I got to when I walk around all the time. Yesterday, I sat down with, I bet 40 customers. And just to see what they had to say or any questions they had and whatnot, and to be able to explain to people that my idea behind it is that, man, when you can walk into anywhere you're going and immediately feel comfortable, right? And then when you're comfortable, then you let your guard down. You're able to relax. And then when you get a meal that you're probably not expecting, if this was the first time you had been there, right? You're not expecting to get, and you get, and you're like, what is good? But you're taking it all in because of the lighting, because of the art, because of the music that you're hearing.
Yeah, when you look over and there's a string, and you look down and there's a little mountain climber hanging off the fucking wall, and you're like, why the fuck is that there? But it's something to spark your interest, to keep it going. And then I wonder, and we've known each other and whatever and talk about all this, but when I go into places like that or go to other places, I think when you're in the industry, if you're like us, that you're constantly looking around, like, why is that light bulb there? Why is that bottle there? Why is that piece of art there? Why, when I had 26 and I was, the ceiling there, the original ceiling was a drop ceiling, and it was 40 some years of just smoke on the ceilings, right? It was a mess or whatever, and I was worried about painting it, and I wanted the right color on the ceilings, and it was a complete pain in the ass to take those, one, to get them down they were stuck up
Yeah,
there
yeah.
with smoke, and then have to get them all painted. Where are we putting them to paint them all, to let them dry, and then get them back up? Where do they go? What are breaking? What are cutting? Once you have to buy new ones, they don't look the same as the old ones. And I was like particular about that. And I don't know, someone said something to me, who the fuck looks up? And I said, well, I do. Everywhere I go. You know what I mean? Because when you're in this, you do, because it's that vision of the thing of like, why is all that shit there?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, right. Why is it there?
Don't you see all that?
Yeah, but a lot of people don't.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of people don't, but there are people that are, and it's like, do you want to be in a stagnant room, or do you want to be in something that's interesting, right, and stimulates you, right?
I try to talk about. I mean, to me in life now, right now, okay. I try to pride myself on being aware of whatever this is, whatever this is, whenever I get in my car and drive away, of just whatever situation I'm in. And then and I think the more that you do get into that and are conscious of what goes on around you, you realize that there are quite a few people that they're not thinking the same thing that you're thinking about.
No.
And then you just, but that's good that you have the cognizant thought, because then you just turn away and you.
But that's being aware too. Like, I'm aware that you don't fucking have a clue what's going on here right now, right?
And it helps.
Yeah,
it helps. And
it
then you
helps,
just steer clear of those people.
Maybe good. All right, you're good. Yeah.
Move
On
along.
to the next, right? Right. But that's where your art, like, so for people that haven't been to Talbot yet, you have to go. And you have to go because of the food, number one. But it's the experience of the whole thing. And so the things that stand out to me are the art, because I know you're a big art, like diehard art guy, and I am too, and the music, and also the Yetis. So talk about a little bit about the art. Why art, and how you got into so much art and all that.
I mean,
and I know you're a big sneakerhead too, but I know you don't have sneakers up on the walls and
not
stuff.
yet.
I'm waiting for those to be boxed and put up on the walls. But
So, I mean, and this is not a rehearsed answer, but I think it's the right answer. It's all been totally organic. From when I started, I had like 20 pieces up of art that was like, some pop art that I didn't think was gonna, and I was, concerned about it, but it was not going to push the boundary too much
hard, right?
Because I didn't know. know.
So pop art that you were always into and thought that it would be
like
cool, but okay.
Yeah, like pop art of the day.
Art,
like
yeah.
so I've always liked Banksy. I like the, the graffiti, the portion of that, the freedom of expression. That's kind of the idea that I like. So some of that stuff, and then I found these big origami pieces that were like.
That was like the panda, the lion.
Yeah.
What did you have? Panda. What else you have?
A bull. I still have a panda up. A big dinosaur,
That's
a T-Rex.
Okay, yeah.
So those were all up, and it was just cool stuff that I had seen that I didn't think that anybody else had. I mean, which was truth to some of that, and then to start to be able to build on the art. Really, the better the business went and just flowed. I just kept picking up little pieces. Right. You know what I mean? And then, like you had said, but the same thing of like what's the game where everything falls down?
Tetris.
Yeah, that's
Just
kind of the
falling
idea.
into place,
yeah,
yeah.
and all this stuff everywhere, and then the way that people responded to it too. So you keep putting some of these things up, and it's all stuff that's influenced me.
Right.
So there's Friday. There's a lot of hip hop things up on there. There's Kanye tweets. There's, so each of those were just things that had worked
Big
in my
Lebowski.
life. Yeah, big. Yeah, I mean,
I say
my
that
boy
because
Blue.
I watched that movie maybe like 5,000 times in my life.
Bruce Lee, Biggie. I mean, anything that had influenced me. And then the Yetis, which has became such a huge part of the culture.
It's like and again, for people that don't know, the Yetis are basically like the mascot of Talbot's at this point, right?
Yeah. So the same guy that did my signs for me when we started, then happens to be an international chainsaw carver. His name's Ken Tynan. He's from Butler. So he had carved this 7'6", 650-pound Yeti, and I said, "Who commissioned you to do that?" He said, "Nobody." And I said,
"Oh, so that wasn't made originally for you? Like
No.
you didn't say I want a Yeti at this place?"
No.
And
And I said, "Sold." And he said, "You're a sucker. I never even told you how much it cost." And I said, "It doesn't matter."
Right.
And I bought it, and then we put the cage around, and that's how we ran the electricity to one of the first projects that we had done outside. Right. Because I had a garage there that we had to bulldoze down because of what happens in business, right? So that's how it got carved, right? And it was just it was there. It was an awesome piece of art. It was the
Now,
most money
you
that I
saw
ever
it because
spent.
you went to pick your sign up?
I saw it because it was online. It was on Facebook.
Oh, you saw it there. Okay.
I just immediately sent him a message, and I mean, people commission him to do things for so far out. I can't believe that I was lucky enough to. At any rate, so I got it right.
Yeah.
And then people are insane about Yetis in this area.
Every time I'm up, if I just come up to sit and have a coffee with you or whatever, I got to take a picture with
Right.
it. You have to.
And it's been unbelievable. So after that, then, you know, for me, my sense of humor, I'm like, well, I got to get him a girlfriend, right? And so
So Osiris and
Osiris Penfield, right? And then Sasha McDuffie, that's his girlfriend.
how's the names?
So Osiris Penfield, Osiris from the Osiris of this shit, Old Dirty Bastard. Penfield because it sounds like aristocratic white person, you know, and he's kind of in between, you know, all that. And then Sasha, that's the ghetto side of the female Yeti at my place. If you've ever seen her, it would be the back side. And then
She got a little booty.
She does have, it's a large booty, I would say. McDuffie because Julia Duffy, who was in the Newhart show in the 90s. You ever watch the Bob Newhart show?
I know the show, but I didn't watch it.
She's a
no.
cute blonde hair lady. Anyway, I thought she was hot when I was a little kid. I'm a little Irish, so I put a Mick in front of it.
There you go.
McDuffie, right? So I just got from my buddy Ken the other day a picture that he sent me, and I've been on this for him for a while, but of another Yeti that's about to come into the fold. And I got a picture of it right here for you. But he carved me a baby Yeti, and the Yeti is looking at his toe, just like any little kid does.
Oh, that's terrific.
And I mean,
And I will keep this until people can actually go up and see it. Oh, that's terrific.
yeah, and that's this is another reason that I like.
Now, do you still have them? Now, you just did some workout back.
Yeah.
With your new what's it called, Pergolux?
Yeah, Pergolux roof.
Do you still have them both underneath, or did you move
They're
them?
both underneath, right by couches. So now you can just go
just
sit
hang
with
out
the
with the
Yetis.
Yetis,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that little guy will be in there as well.
That's terrific. And that's something that I think that's, and I don't know if you have this problem, but being a creative and being a visionary, right, and seeing things is trusting your gut, right? Of like you were just able to, you saw that I need it.
Right.
And you don't know why you need it. You don't know how much it's going to cost, right? And you don't know what it's going to do to your bank account at that point of where you're at in your life when that business or whatever else. But you know for some reason you need that thing. And for whatever reason you need it. And like it's not making you sell more. Well, at the time, it's not putting people in your door. It's not selling a dish. It's not doing whatever. But trusting your gut and trusting your vision, right? And what you, just who you are, right? It has.
And it's funny too to make the purchase in that time. It's one of those things too where I say that sometimes I feel guilty about not being at work on a Monday or Tuesday, right? Even though, but it's because of how you're raised. Because two, I'm about to make however much money this purchase was for the Yeti, right? And then I think of my dad. He's in my head when I'm
probably having like
when I'm doing it. You know what I mean? Like, but and he's not going to say anything about it because at this point, what I'm doing is just making the creative decisions anyway. But I think that's a respect level,
right? That is, but that's a move. And that's cool that he sees that you have that business relationship respect that he can respect. Okay, you're running your own business. I'm going to let you make your own decisions.
Yeah,
right?
or mistakes for that matter.
Or mistakes,
right,
because
yeah.
those are decisions too.
Yeah,
and you have to fail to be able to grow because, Lord knows, I mean, I've made a lot of bad ones, and you wish that, but you can't go back.
No.
You have to just learn and not do that again. Right.
Yeah.
But that's probably a purchase that he would not have made.
No.
Ever.
No, not even close.
No.
When I first started and I started to augment the 10.5-inch white plates that we have, that was a point of contention, I would say, because that wasn't the status, that wasn't the norm.
It wasn't
right
classic.
at that
it
point.
wasn't traditional. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And not to mention the amount of money that some of the plates cost, but it's all tied up.
You do it all steel light stuff,
it's
right?
All,
Mostly,
a lot of it, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Or a touch of modern, which you just get random sales. And
Yeah, and I think too, like what you do with the and we do it here too, is starting to and trying to is, the mismatch, the eclectic. Like sometimes people don't, well, mine's on this plate and mine's on this. Well, who gives a fuck?
Nobody cares.
Right? Who cares?
Nobody
Right?
cares at all.
Like I look at a dish, I look at something as mostly when I cook at home and when I cook, what I eat out of mostly is a bowl. It's easier.
Yep.
I feel like most things you have to know what are you eating and how. Okay, so if whatever I'm cooking and it's in that dish, at the end of that dish, to be able to get that last bit of sauce off or whatever else, is it going to be easier to come off of a plate? Is it going to be easier to come off of a bowl, right? And so, like, you have to think all the way through to that point, because if that sauce is that good as you think it's going to be,
right?
They want it all.
They
like
should
someone
want
was
it
in
till
here
the
the other
end.
day and was like, she said, "Is it bad if I use a spoon?" And I'm like, "No, that's what I do." Like the end of the
Pick up the
sauce,
whole bowl.
Yeah, pick it up. Yeah, it's okay. Like you do with your. That was a big thing with
Ramen
your ramen
bowls.
stuff, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to catch people drinking the juice.
Good
but
to the last drop.
if it's that good, you want people to do that, and you have to provide them with that vessel. But that's your job. That's my job, or any entrepreneur out there, a business owner. That's their job. You have to think it through to the end. What's that final experience you want that person to have before they walk out of that place? What's that last thing? Like if they're sitting there and they're dripping it like that and you catch them,
Yeah.
hey, you're caught.
Yeah,
but
that's
you
good
like
stuff.
it that much, yeah. Uh-huh.
That is good stuff.
Sorry about that. That's there's Venti on the east side, right? People just randomly walking in when the door's open. That's a good thing. Yeah. And my bad is what I should have done is try to sell them a bottle of wine. Come on, Ryan. I failed
right
everybody out there. Yeah, myself. Sorry. To apologize to AJ right now.
That's funny.
Oh, that's terrific. But oh, that's good.
Yeah, that gets you up. But I mean,
it did. But I feel bad. I didn't try to sell that dude a bottle of wine right now. Yeah.
In the end of it, what makes everything the most user friendly, right? Should be a thought in our mind of how they get out the door, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when March 2020 came and everybody had to wear a mask, right? And then that was for whatever. We're not going to get into any of that. Me at my restaurant, I never wore one there. Okay, it was not me making a stand against anybody at all, against anything. I have allergies and I have asthma, but if you can't see my face for me to do this when you're in my business, I can't communicate with anybody correctly. And for my job, like in the last 25 years, that's what I've learned. Like how I make everybody feel the most accommodated, right? That's what I've considered my job. Right, so when you throw these things in, and it's just like you throw all these wrinkles in, then for me, I think, well, how do I still stay the most cool, right? And I'm able to deal with all this stuff,
Right.
And that's kind of where.
But that is it too, and it's Talbot's Taproom. I mean, you're obviously your name's on it,
Right.
But I get what you're saying, because if you can't provide that energy, you can't provide that ball busting at a table, right? That quick comment, and then you walk past and people are like, "What the fuck did you just say?"
Yeah, what just happened?
Yeah, right.
What just happened?
Yeah, but it's part of it. And
Uh-huh.
if you can't do that, and I'm sure it was hard for you when you had to, and you made a great transition to, I think there were some businesses that are around that I look at that made a quick transition and a good transition and figured it out of how do we go from service of that in-person service to how can we transition to keep our business alive and provide people with our food, but
And our employees with money for their family, right?
And how can we give it to them to take home?
Yeah.
And I think that was something that you were able to do where, yeah, maybe your personality didn't come through where you were able to talk to each person, but you were still able to provide that service to where you figured it out enough to where we can get the food to the people to where when they get home,
It's gonna be
going to
as
still play
close.
the part
Yeah.
of like you're eating it here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the way you packaged it and the way you brought it to the car and the way, things like that.
You had to scale. I mean, and if you really thought about it, I mean, you just had to scale it down to, specific flavors, and then, take the bun off the burger. And I watched the places the whole time not do that at all. I mean, but it's really, really simple, right? But, and then that's with employees that are good enough to make those decisions
It
as
is,
well.
yeah.
And they're
And
saying,
it takes a little bit more time. and a little bit more care and some more packaging, and love to it. But I mean, if you care about it enough, it's something that you do.
Yeah. And then I think it proved to everybody too, outwardly, that, if we're willing to change whatever concept we have to make it better for, our customers, because we still want people to get our food.
Yeah.
A customer reminded me yesterday, they were like, what about when this all happened and you sold like 350 lobster rolls in 4 days in Mercer when you were closed? And I said, what about the fact that you remember that whole fucking story? You know what I mean? And those were almost exactly the numbers and exactly what happened.
Right.
And it's crazy. And I needed that to happen so bad for me as a person, because this was a couple months after it all went down, and, things kind of crumbled and we weren't sure. And then we opened up and we had no idea. We sold as many lobster rolls in 4 days that we thought we were going to sell in like 4 weeks. And it was just like, it was nothing to scale, and it was so good. And then I was like, because we were removed from doing cool shit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, we do cool shit here.
You still do though. Yeah. And you're still providing something, because there was a point there during that no one, day to day, it changed so much. No one knew what the fuck was going on.
No idea.
No clue.
No idea. I
right?
remember coming here and you and I sitting here multiple times and just like,
what are we going to do?
Like, or is it even cool that we're talking to each other?
Right.
Just had no idea.
Yeah, and we changed, right away and said, all right, we're going to do everything online and just try to get ahead of the curve, and it worked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it kept it was enough in the first couple months when everything was shut down.
I was going to say that March was insane for you.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Insane.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I would work. I was teaching online, so I would get up. I would teach until, I think we were done at 2 o'clock. And then from 2 o'clock until 6 o'clock at night, immediately once school was over, I'd sign, I have to technically sign out, but the day was over, my work day was over. And then I'd come over here, and from 2 o'clock until 6 or 8 or 9 o'clock at night, I would fill orders and deliver orders, drive to people's houses and do whatever. But it was like, you had to do what you had to do, because the whole goal was, no one knew how long it was going to last, what was going to happen. But my whole goal was, I don't care if I make a penny. If the doors are open on the other side of this, we have a chance.
Yep.
Right? And I think that's what a lot of people were thinking, is all you need is a chance. And if you can figure out how to navigate the unknown, I mean, that's what we do every day anyways, but if you can figure this out and get to the other side of it, then, and we'll see what happens. And when you open back up, I think it was at the point where, because you shut down for, what you say, 50 days, you said earlier?
Yeah.
And then when you opened back up, everybody was so stuck in their houses. It was like, okay, I need good food again.
Right.
Because you can, like I said earlier, I'll say this till the day I die, it was great being in the house every day. Cooking, hanging out with the kids,
and that time you
games.
never would have got that opportunity.
Never.
Ever in your whole life.
Never.
You never would have that for that many days in a row.
Not with a life as busy as we have. But there's only so many recipes you can make. There's only when you're calling your aunts and your great aunts, and how did grandma make this, or how do we make this dough, or the dough didn't come out this good. Well, how do we do, right? There's only so much you can do with all that.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, I need a little bit of something else, right? Because I know the one time
human interaction.
We came up to your place at one time, and more than once, and brought it home. And I remember having the oven, when Rack went up and got it and brought it home, and had the oven heated up and heated everything up individually to where I thought it needed to be. And then we have all steel laid plates too at the house, and plating everything and sending it so it was like I was sitting in your place, right?
I said to you, when were you at my place? Because I was sure that you were.
Yeah. And it made you feel a little bit normal, though, at least through it all. But I feel like that's what people needed, and
to take a break, right?
You were able. There was places that were able to provide that little bit of normalcy for people, and I think it was mentally, it got people through, like, to the other side. Like, you need that, right? Like that lobster roll that people would normally go to your place, sit at a table, talk, have a good time, have all that energy hitting them, right? And doing whatever while you're cooped up in a house with your family, which is great, but you're also cooped up in the house with your family. There's only so much you can talk about and do, and you need a little bit of that normalcy. And when you can have that, food creates memories. I'll always say that.
If that can take you to that place.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
And it can.
Think about, like, well, this is the experience we had before, or this is what we have something to look forward to. that's what food's all about. And that's how I grew up. You know, my grandparents cooking for me and Sunday dinners and everything else. I mean, that's every time you cook, it's special.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it should be, it should create a memory more than anything. Right?
I love the fact that I can go to speak to any table in the world, and it doesn't matter who they are or where they are from in the world. And as soon as I ask them how their food up, and they look at me, we already know there's a connection that is made almost momentarily. And if they were from Zimbabwe, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because that's somehow we all eat, so it's a universal connector. Right?
Yeah, it's a common language. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And there's something special about, especially whether it's, you and your spouse, or somebody's on a date, or when you're in a group of friends that you haven't seen in a while, when you can sit down and enjoy a meal that's good, and you don't have to think about, I'm not sure if I like this or whatever. When you're talking about, try this, right? And you're scooping something off of someone's plate, and you're sharing food. There's something about that it's so intimate that you don't. There's not many things like that. You know what I mean? It's
a true feeling of comfort. Like, where you don't, no questions that need to be besides get out of my way so I can get a little bit more of that.
Yeah. And especially service too, because I think that's such a big part of having a good experience at a restaurant, is when those servers or that service know when to check on you, and also know when to leave you the fuck alone.
Yep.
And not be up your ass bugging you, so you can have that moment or have that experience of the company you're with.
They call that unobtrusive service. That's what I learned in Atlanta. And that's the idea, and that's where all these ideas about like be cool come from. I mean,
cool means cool,
because that's what it is. I mean, it is when you realize you're aware that they have something to say. So do another lap. Do whatever you got to go do until you come back, and you don't interrupt somebody, and you can do anything around somebody in a discreet way where you don't have to bother somebody. But then when in the same style, and I mean, that was another huge thing that was probably my bigger focus at the beginning about our service.
Like the training of the staff and everything?
Mine was to train the trainers more so, and then so they knew the structure of what we wanted. And I always am like, hey, if you need to stand on your head and that's your shtick for you to be your server, then do that.
Just be yourself.
And I don't care about that, but there has to be there has to be a systematic way to get things done, and the way that we like to go about things. And then, but when you do have all the knowledge of the menu, right? So I let my servers eat anything whenever they want. I put up all the specials we have every week. Even if we'd had them before, it doesn't matter, because they eat them, and then they're going to be good, right? Because that's what we want, and then they go sell them. I mean, that's what you want to do, and then they're happy. You know what I mean? Food makes people happy, but like if you don't. Without good service, you've lost a lot of that experience. With somebody that is picking up on things and doesn't need to ask and be in your way or whatnot, or, I went to a place last week too when I was away, said to my girls, "Do you like sushi?" And they said, "No." And he said, "Okay, I'll be right back." And then he brought kids sushi and pulled it from behind his back in those 4-ounce souffle cups of goldfish. Right. and they'll remember that.
Yeah.
So you got to do things.
Now, do you like hiring people, service-wise, that have never worked in the industry so you can mold them, or do you like people that have experience and then try to fit into your scheme of things?
I've given up on hiring and firing. I haven't given up. I've just
passed it on to someone.
Jen hires and fires all front of house, and
so that's where part of the reason why she's called the lady boss.
Correct. Yeah. There's many reasons, but yeah. and Amy does all for the kitchen, and that's the idea of staying your own lane. Like Teresa and Jen are so gifted at writing alcohol programs, and I don't drink. So can you imagine what an asshole I would be, or my, ego, like why would I ever even bother getting in that? And when they come up with them, it's great. So being able to do that, and then letting my kitchen rock and roll with the ideas after we come up with them, and then I'm able to art and then design Pergolux things,
run the business,
put all this,
right.
And keep up with all the financials and do that.
Keep the vision going and orchestrate and everything.
And now I'm to the point where it's just, I'm back to doing everything, do the things in the morning, write the specials, print them up, and then being able to walk around and talk to people, which is what I really enjoy to do. Yeah.
Yeah, your niche.
Yeah. I mean, look, just a little bit running my mouth.
Right.
How that goes.
The shit talking. Yeah.
In an effective
and
manner,
people
right?
that don't know you, and sometimes aren't sure how to take you. But I mean, you were a hooper your whole life. You played sports, or you played hoops. But I mean, that shit talking is a big part of what it is.
And that's how you know you're comfortable with somebody.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you're really only nice to people that aren't your friends.
Right.
Yeah, because
and
people that are
don't
your
know
friends,
people that don't know your dad, you get it from somewhere.
there's no way that I could not be this way.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, my dad's favorite thing, he's 69 years old. He still talks about people as scorchers, right? You're like, Chuck, he's a real scorcher. And I'm like, you're just talking about people talking shit, right? And he's like, yeah, but he's classic. Like, I get it.
That's what it is.
I get it, yeah.
Oh, that's terrific. So what's next? I know you're doing some things in the back. I know you redid your patio. I know you have big visions, and you can say what you want and what you don't want. But you know, you're starting to get your backyard all done, right?
Yeah. So
See, it's the whole learning curve of this podcast. That's good.
6'3". If I was 6'2.5", that wouldn't have happened. So I was able to purchase a little bit more land to the, we'll say the Grove City side of my business on 58. So I bought about another 1.5 acres, so a little bit over a football field, right? And that borders the other 8 acres that I have. And I have all the stuff that I've done is on about 1.5, 1.75 acres so far. So I have about 8 full acres that I want to essentially add parking, add walking trails, a natural amphitheater for music, and then, you know, a few different atmospheres to be able to watch whatever is out there, you know, whatever show. But I started to get into the development portion of that, which I've never done before, so I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too. Yeah, we've been talking about it for a couple of years, and the vision of it all and seeing what happens. I'm excited to see what unfolds too.
And you know, so from what happened from 1 year, so sometimes in business you have to wait 8 years to do something that you thought you were going to be able to do in 2 years, and then sometimes things happen the other way. And if I didn't think I was going to be able to start this until 2025, I think I can start it right now, which is just cool, you know. And something else that I feel like I want to talk about is that the restaurant business got money from the government. Okay, so this has never happened before. So with some of these PP, I mean, and a bunch of different businesses did, but so how it's always been in the restaurant business as well is like, hey, you picked a hard business, right? And if your business concept isn't good enough, then that's that, right? And even, you know, this was imposed, whatnot, but from getting some money from the government and being able to navigate those things in the way that I was able to navigate them, and hopefully a lot of different businesses. Some businesses were able to put themselves in a better place when all this started, which is crazy to think, but it all stems from, I mean, to me, just roll with it. You know, every day, whatever it is, it didn't matter. My reaction to what I was told wasn't going to change the situation. You know, more of it in the reaction was just over the long term, where you just say, fine, I'll figure it out. Wherever this radar is, I'm going to stick right below.
Yeah, and I think that's something that you know, in the restaurant side of things, but I mean, I guess business in general is you can continue to, you know, work and just keep putting back into your business and keep growing it and growing it and growing it because you want to be there for the long haul, right? You're not looking for an escape route, right? And I think that's what you're talking about is your whole goal is to continue to build Talbot's Taproom into whatever it's going to end up being. You have a vision and you know what it's going to be, and you're not just looking for a quick in and out and be done. This is your life. I mean, this is what you want your life to be and continue to grow into it.
And the focus can't be, I mean, it can be, but for me, the focus can't be money, right? If you focus on money instead of people truly being happy, you're done, right? So all this has been from me growing up on it and seeing it to doing it and realizing like, hey, we can continue to build and curate this place and make it the best place in the whole world, right? So since this happened, and when the perceived, if people perceived you as successful at some point, whenever that happened, then I started to get all these offers about, you know, opening up a place here or this and this and
come
this
and be
and
my
this.
partner.
And
I'll be
you know, which is great, and you know, if your ego would need that or whatever it was, but then the more thought about it is this: if you're able to do it on your own, right? And then there's no chance to argue about money or any of that. And then that all the creative freedom of, hey, do you want to do this? No, just yes, I can do it. We can do this now. We're gonna like.
It's the life that you choose rather than what someone wants to choose for you or whatever else. Like we talked about that earlier. Like that's my struggle with this a lot. It's like, do you move it somewhere? Do you do whatever? We're in Newcastle, on the east side of Newcastle, in the neighborhoods. Like, do I keep building this here? Do you pick it up and move it? And you mentioned, well, what do you want it to be? You know what I mean? And that's where you're at too, is what do you want it to be? You're comfortable with being there, with growing that place and growing into something. And if you're happy in your job and you're comfortable, you can live your life and do what you want to do and your family's taken care of. That's like the ultimate freedom, right? That's what people are looking for, right? And if you can keep doing that, and every year progressing and keep growing that into, because there's nothing better than when you have a vision and then at some point, it's never perfect, like what you think in your head and what it ends up being. But when you have that vision and when you get to that point to where it's like, holy fuck, like this is it.
It came to fruition.
Yeah. And what's next? Like I can do the next. Now it gives you like that energy. Like, oh, fuck, I can do this again. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then it almost feels like you said, like you're not being like arrogant or overconfident, but it's like, well, yeah, I can do this.
I can do this. Yeah.
And then more and more people don't believe in you, right? And then then there's a part of you that wants to prove people wrong. But then when you do it again or it continues to happen, then like you said, that's when people start coming, well, you should do this, or how about we do this?
I got an idea. Yeah. We want to use your mental, your intellectual capacity to help.
And I feel like that's when you know, though, that, well, maybe I did something right.
Yeah. Maybe I just do need to step back and realize, like, hey, yeah, and if you're able to continually, if you have a great concept and you're getting it down, and then to curate things. So when I just expanded my terrace and in my backyard, I could have put I probably could have put 12 tables out there, Denny. Easily 12 tables. But that would have killed my kitchen. That would have killed the flow of everything that we did. That would have killed the staff, the amount of people that I would have to have inside. So the benefit of potentially having more revenue, that's what people see, right? People see and they're like, oh, this is going well, we need to push it to this because then you can have this much more.
But is the experience going to be better for you in the long run than it is to have those extra dollars and right now?
Yeah, and so I've seen so many people fail for that reason. So instead I just put all this money into these stonework things and then put 4 total tables, knowing that was that. That's the most we're going to grow, and then in a few more years, we'll have grown this way, but it'll just be on certain days a month where we try to bring in.
Yeah, and have those big events.
Can you imagine seeing him in the woods in Mercer for 300 people?
Right. Yeah. Have a juvenile up there and playing and having a good time.
Yeah. They'll be the house band.
Yeah.
We're gonna sign something soon.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, this has been good. I think it's a good point to end this, and we should have sold that dude a bottle of wine.
You're gonna be thinking about that all day.
All day, rest of the day.
You should go. You got a camera out there? We figure out how to get his license plate.
But I'll think about it. But listen, I truly appreciate your friendship and you coming in, and I look forward to everything that you do and we do together, and just
back at you. Much love, man. It's been cool to to get to roll with you for a few years here. That I feel that we see the same things.
Yeah.
So it's nice.
It's been good to reconnect, and talk.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
My man.
Well, that's it. Thank you.